He ain't finished yet, but Kevin Keatts is hitting some special moves in Portal Combat.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly that we all know and love. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Earlier this week, we spoke about Marcus Hill of Bowling Green, who visited NC State. I believe it was Monday and Tuesday. He was an all-MAC selection this past season at Bowling Green. He averaged 20.5 points a game, and he is now committed to NC State. He made the decision official on Thursday. He will be joining Kevin Keatts and the Wolfpack here in Raleigh for next season. This is a good pickup. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions so far on social media, but the two of us really believe that Marcus Hill brings a lot to the table here.
I'm surprised that there is a mixed reaction for multiple reasons. The biggest of which being, what has Marcus Hill not shown, or what's the question there that many people are having that we're just like so confused and stuck on who he is, right? You could have the argument of, oh, he played against lower competition. Where did DJ Burns come from? Where was his last stop before he came to NC State? Winthrop?
Yep.
And we were sold. We knew what the deal was from the moment he stepped on campus. So the idea that we have all these questions about Marcus Hill, that is, we're not sure what he can do in the ACC, and that point total is going to go down and all this and all that. That's good and dandy. But again, y'all tell me where you're getting the idea from that he is not the type of player that's going to be a special get for the Pack, and why. Like that's my most important thing here. He has multiple years left. Obviously, he can work on his shooting from the outside and all that good stuff, but he does what he does well. He gets to his spots well. He knows himself well enough to know who he is and who he isn't. And like you talked about, Grayson, Coach Keatts is going after bigger guards, 6'4", 185. That'll play. That fits into that mold of now having, and this is the other part of this that I don't think people are considering. Think about the defensive troubles you're going to give other teams. Your shortest guard that's not known for his defensive prowess, because Breon Pass, that's a big part of how he gets minutes, because he harasses guys all the entire way up the court. But your shortest guy who isn't known for defense is MOC. And he's what, 6'2", 6'3"? Everybody else, very, very long guards that are going to disrupt, guards that are going to get in passing lanes, guards that are going to get deflections that lead to fast breaks the other way. I honestly and truly don't understand what it is, but I'll tell you what, here at Locked On Wolfpack, we feel as honored to have you as people who get picked on The Price is Right, okay? That's how we feel about you here at Locked On Wolfpack, because we're excited to have you. You had plenty of other options, and I'm glad you chose NC State. I expect big things out of you. I know you're going to do those big things next year, Mr. Hill.
I'll say this about Marcus Hill. If you're averaging 20.5 points in a P5 conference or a G5 conference, you don't do that by accident. It's because you're very talented. And in this case, in Marcus Hill's case, you're talented in the paint and getting to the rim. I believe the stat, which is actually true, Marcus Hill had the most attempts at the rim of any guard in the country this past season. Coming into this offseason, probably the most important component for NC State to seek after, guards in particular, that can create rim pressure. Marcus Hill is the literal definition of that. He can he can finish at the rim. He can also get in the lane and then create out of that. If you draw pressure onto you in the paint and then you can kick it out to a Mike James, you can kick it out to a Dontrez Styles, you can kick it out to an MOC. Jaden Taylor as well. There's a lot of possibilities that you can open up off of the way that Marcus Hill plays. And I'd have to imagine that's the selling point for Coach Keatts and the staff. And He is a bit of a bigger guard. He's shown the ability to be physical. I think most of the concern from folks is coming from his perimeter shooting. That is something that's not a feature of his game, although I probably would expect to see those numbers bump up a little bit. I'm sure that'll be a point of emphasis in this offseason. And then defense as well. His defense will probably also have to be tinkered with, but there's plenty of time between now and November. This is a good pickup for NC State. There's a lot of aspects that he brings offensively that can affect the whole team, front to back. A guard that provides the amount of pressure as he does in getting into the paint, driving to the lane, finishing at the bucket. We really need guard, or probably multiple guards, that can do that type of thing. And we've talked about the offensive philosophy will probably look much different this year for NC State. We're probably going to be shooting a lot more free throws than it feels like we've been accustomed to. We have physical guards that routinely get to the line. Marcus Hill is one of those. So this is a really good pickup. I think he satisfies a need on this NC State roster. There are some other parts of his game that will need some attention, but I like the upside here with Marcus Hill.
And the other thing that the other thing that I'll say about Marcus Hill that I think is really an underrated part of who he is as much as we talk about Coach Keatts and player development and what has or has not happened in that regard, one thing that you cannot say is this: players' shooting splits have not gotten better historically under Coach Keatts. And here's why that's important. If you take the guys from last year, the guys that were already on the squad, give them a little better shooting splits, combine that with a Mike James coming downhill, combine that with a Marcus Hill coming downhill, combine those guys that are already here that we already know, hey, this is their game, this is their specialty, this is what they do in terms of shooting. You combine that with guards that apply pressure at the rim. What more could you want? What more could you really and truly want out of your guards here at NC State? I mean, yes, again, these guys are not guys that I would say, hey, he's complete. If we were talking baseball terms, he's a 5'2" player and all that type of stuff. Sure, it may not be that, but to me, the way that this team is being constructed in a very deliberate way for what Keatts wants. And again, that's why I believe that he's going to get a stretch four instead of a traditional big, because I very much so see him running lineups where you're doing a lot of those inverted screen sets, where you're doing a lot of those, hey, can we potentially have a situation where our guards are the role guy and we're trusting our big to hit them with a good pocket pass or something like that? Like, these are the things that I'm thinking about, because Coach Keatts has shown the ability to adjust and adapt to what his roster looks like. We never saw as many paint touches or post-up touches as we had before DJ Burns got here. We probably won't see that again until another player of that magnitude in terms of post scoring gets here. So what will we see now? Most likely a lot of driving and kicking.
Obviously, with the departure of Mo Diarra, we went back up to 2 available scholarships. With the arrival of Marcus Hill, we're right back down to 1. So as we talked about on Thursday's episode, a stretch 4 / power forward / potential big is definitely next on the shopping list. Kevin Keatts has got to go back in the portal yet again. He's done a very good job so far. Back-to-back exciting portal seasons. Marcus Hill is the latest addition to the NC State Wolfpack. Coming up next, we're talking about a decommitment from NC State on the football side of things, after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy. But it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Middle portion of our Friday show, now getting into some football transfer portal news. Auburn transfer linebacker who was committed to NC State, Cam Riley, has now decommitted from NC State. And this came as a little bit of an NFL draft news dump. He tweeted this after the first couple picks of the first round. Probably not intentional, but that is ultimately when the tweet was sent out. This is a tough situation now for Tony Gibson and the NC State defense. It opens up another spot that really needs to be filled. There's already several questions about what the linebacking core might look like for this year. Cam Riley was supposed to be a very solid depth piece. Unsure if whether or not he was going to start. Nonetheless, he was a really exciting depth piece to be looking forward to having this year. Coming over from Auburn, playing quality SEC football, and you put him under the wing of Tony Gibson, you got to feel like he'll pay off in some way, shape, or form. So to lose him now at this point of the spring, it provides a little bit of a task here for the coaching staff. They're going to have to go back into the portal, find somebody that can provide an equal amount of depth that you were looking for out of Cam Riley. And you got to do it relatively quick, because otherwise you're looking at some of these younger guys here on the roster. They might just have to grow up a little bit quicker. They might have to develop just a little bit quicker, or else you might be feeling a teensy bit thin at the linebacking position.
Go back into SEC country and call that linebacker from Tennessee.
Oh,
give him a call.
Okay.
Give him a call. Give him a call. Let me tell you something. I like Cam Riley a lot. I think that he was supposed to come in and be a starter right away, because I don't see a ton of guys that we have on the roster currently. And I'm like, that spot is safe. That spot is locked up. Like, with all due respect to the young men on the roster now, the linebacker play has not been at that level from these young men in the past or going forward. Obviously, replacing Jalen Scott and Peyton Wilson, those two were the impact linebackers last year. So you were obviously going to be looking at a situation where at least those two spots were open. But the Mike position as well, and again, this is not to denigrate anybody or say to speak negatively, but the reality is our play at the Mike linebacker position was not to the level of where I'm like, hey, this guy's got this spot locked up. I don't care what anybody says. That's his spot to lose. It just wasn't there. So I believe that Cam was supposed to be a starter, but at the end of the day, this is ball. This is FBS ball. This is Power 4 ball. It's competition. It's competition. It's not about, anybody coming in and having a spot. Cam has not played a snap, has not put on a red and white jersey once ever. It's sad to see a guy who I think has all the talent in the world go, who I think could have been that next linebacker in the Tony Gibson lineage of like a guy that's going to lead the nation or be top 5 in the nation in almost all these different categories and whatnot. But it's okay. There are other linebackers in the portal that you can go get that will be ready to do it right away. And that's just the reality, right? With this being said, now you've got to get back in the portal. You've got to. Because you can give that spot away to a freshman or something like that, sure. But do you want to do that? I know it worked out a few years ago with Arius Moore when we picked him up super late out of Ohio, and he was a baller and a stud here for us for many, many years. But I'm not sure that you want to do that, especially in today's game where you don't have to. You can find a transfer that's in the portal right now that's going to be able to give you some impactful snaps there at linebacker. And with that being said, you just got to go and get it. It's the new nature of college football. It's how the cookie crumbles, so, hey, time to make it happen.
It's definitely a hello, goodbye situation with Cam Riley. He was a part of Wolfpack Nation for all of, 3 months. Have no idea who this guy is, essentially, at this point. However, the Tennessee linebacker that Kenton had referenced, Elijah Herring, he was Tennessee's leading tackler this past season. He entered the portal, I think, a little bit over a week ago. If NC State could reach into Tennessee's pocket and pull out an Elijah Herring, oh my goodness. That, you talk about trying to replace Peyton Wilson. He still wouldn't be doing that, but that'd be a good start in the right direction. I'll tell you that much. Picking up a leading tackler from one of the premier SEC teams, that would be an absurd pickup at this point in the spring. I haven't heard anything about this. I don't know what kind of interest may or may not have been shared. But if I'm Tony Gibson, I'm at least kicking the tires. You got to see what's up with Elijah Herring, because if you want starting snaps here, we got him for you, man. You want to lead this defense and this team to a championship that they have not experienced in virtually forever, we got a spot for you, man. Come on down. Try on that red instead of that burnt orange. See what we can do with you here in Raleigh. He would be a monster in this Tony Gibson defense. Think about this too. Obviously, you have Peyton Wilson. He was the best linebacker in the country last year. He won all the awards, essentially, except for one. Who better than to coach up a linebacker than Tony Gibson? He just put out the best linebacker in the draft. And here's the kicker with Elijah Herring, right? He was only a sophomore last year. So he's got at least 2 years of eligibility too. If you needed to sweeten the deal just a little bit more, you got to sprinkle a little bit more of that sweetener on top of there. I'm telling you, man, Tony Gibson, pick up the phone, brother. I would have to imagine that he's got what you're looking for, and you plug him into this defense, we might have something here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reality is, again, even if it's not Elijah, there's still plenty of quality linebackers in the portal. You know what I mean? Like there's the reality is, yes, this puts you in a bad situation, but it's life. You've got to pick up and go. You've still got to replace them with somebody. I think that we're bringing plenty of good linebackers to campus and all that good stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. But those linebackers that are coming to campus, a lot of them are young, and even the ones that are coming that have experience elsewhere have not played in this system. So by all means, if you need to go get another, go get another. Go get another. If our linebacker play was to the level, if we had the trio that we had a few years ago coming back, I'd be like, oh, Cam D commits, go use that scholarship somewhere else. We're all right. We're all right. We could lose one of those three and still have two of the best backers in the conference. We need another linebacker right away.
Coming up next, we're going to round out our Friday show with Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is Monopoly Go. I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's the great twist on the same Monopoly we all know and love, but on Monopoly Go, you play on not just one Monopoly board, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, but now you can also heist their vaults to make their riches your riches. The leaderboard will show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon of them all is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves Monopoly Go. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. Rounding out our Friday show now with Fan Friday, getting into our top comments of the week. Here we go. First one here comes from Chilton Jarrett. He says, I love Breon Pass so much. However, I am surprised he's sticking around so far. So glad, but I feel like he could go get minutes somewhere else. So I think the biggest testament of this situation and this comment is the culture that Coach Keatts has been slowly building with this program. Breon Pass is probably now the biggest remaining example of this culture. He has stuck with this program for going on now 4 years. He's seen the lows. He's been just a part of the highs, the highest highs that we've had in 3 decades. And he has been here for all of it. He provides really hard minutes when he does get on the court. You can tell that the team absolutely loves this guy. Kind of similar in an Ernest Ross type way. He's so valuable to this team. He might not see the minutes that other guys do, and you might think that he can provide a lot more than what we've seen at a Breon Pass. I think some of that is probably true as well, but Breon Pass is so invaluable to this team and what Kevin Keatts is really trying to build here at NC State. I think it's a great thing that he's stuck around as long as he has, because I'm sure he could go get minutes somewhere else, but he has dug his feet in here at NC State, and he continues to really be a big part of what we're trying to build here.
Yeah, and I think another thing about Breon Pass is, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I'm off base, but it feels like Coach Keatts is grooming him into that backup point guard role.
Right.
It feels like Coach Keatts is working him into that mold and kind of getting him out of that score first mentality that he's had in the past to be more of a make the right play even if it doesn't go into the stat sheet kind of thing. Because MOC, I believe, is gone after this year or after next year, rather. And with that being said, Breon is likely to be the guy that's expected to step up into that role of being the floor general, leading things and kind of setting the floor, setting the table for everybody else to eat. And the times that he was put in, they were in those types of moments where you look up and you're like, man, that's a tough situation to be put in. And for the most part, he made the right decisions to keep NC State in good position. So, yes, he absolutely could go elsewhere and get more minutes, but I'm grateful that he stuck around with the Pack.
Next one comes from Bradley M. He says, I love that James and Styles aren't mainly three-point shooters, but big guards who are scorers who can score anywhere. Physical is something we haven't had. Past Kevin Keatts teams were too reliant on jump shots. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and that's something we've kind of already alluded to in – I think that this new brand of offense with the players we're bringing in through the portal, it's going to look a lot more physical than it has in years past. And not DJ Burns physical in the paint physical, but guard play physical, getting to the free throw line physical, driving into the paint, getting to the rim type physical. I think we're definitely not going to be so reliant on the outside jump shot. Still going to be looking to guys like Mike James and probably Marcus Hill as well to improve upon some three-point shooting, because that is an element of this system that Kevin Keatts likes to keep in there. He likes guards that can run, get down the floor, and can shoot a three from time to time. So the three ball is not going away. I'm sure that's still going to be a very important piece to this, but I am definitely expecting a lot more physicality from our guard play from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want three-point shooters for floor spacing purposes. If you have only guys who can score around the basket, it's easy to defend that, especially in college where there is no 3-second rule defensively. You can just build a wall around the rim and say, hey, they're 6'4", you're 6'9", stand here. Don't let them get to the rim. And if you don't have some three-point shooters, then you're going to run into a lot of that. But with that being said, I think we already do have enough three-point shooters. I think we have enough guys who can shoot it at a good enough clip to where we don't have to worry about that, because then you'll get Jaden Taylor from deep. Then you'll get MOC from deep. Then you'll get, you'll find yourself in situations where, I mean, let's just be honest. While people don't think of Styles as just a three-point shooter, I believe he was, 38% from three last year, somewhere in that range. Like, that's still good enough to where if you run that strategy of build a wall, don't let anybody in the paint, okay, sure. You want to run what Virginia likes to call the pack line defense, where nobody extends out past the free throw line. Sure, go for it, but you're going to get yourself hurt against this team that can, find multiple players that can fill it up from the perimeter. So honestly and truly, I do enjoy having folks who are going to be more attacking, more downhill, more physical. But with that being said, I think that we are going more to a balance than we had in the past, because in the past it seemed entirely too reliant on contested mid-range jumpers, which, don't get me wrong, it worked out for Jarkel Joyner, it worked out for DJ Horn, it worked out for Baby T, but it is nice to see a different type of thing out of some of our league guys for the next year.
Next one also comes from Bradley M. He says, since no news, is this a good sign about MJ Rice coming back? And we talked about this just the other day when we were still waiting on Mo Diarra news as well, but MJ Rice still is a little bit of a question mark. However, I will say this. I'm of the opinion that if he were going to leave, I think he would have done it by now. The deadline for him to enter the portal is next Wednesday. It's May 1st. That's approaching very quickly. I hope to not be putting my foot in my mouth here, but I don't think he's going to leave. I think he is here to stay. I think he wants to develop into the system. I think he wants to stay home because it is close to home for him. He's from Henderson, close to Durham. This looks like we're going to be running it back with MJ Rice. And I, for one, am excited. I was so high on MJ Rice when he committed to NC State last year because of his pedigree and his projections. And a lot of those I think he can still reach. If he gets back to himself and reestablishes the MJ Rice that he once was, we could have something really special in a guy that can play the 3, maybe even some minutes at a stretch 4. There's a lot of versatility that you can get out of MJ Rice when he's firing on all cylinders. So I am choosing to take this as good news. Again, I hope I don't regret saying this, but I do believe that MJ Rice will be back in the red and white.
Yeah, I hope that he's back in the red and white. I mean, do we remember or have we forgotten his first game already where he hit a couple threes and let out a fast break dunk that tore the roof off of Reynolds, because I believe they were in Reynolds that game, tore the roof off the place. You know, he is a guy that can do a lot of things well. Obviously, being right mentally and having things, having certain things that were problematic last year worked out is going to be important for him. And again, we want MJ Rice, the human being, to be good before we even talk about MJ Rice, the basketball player. We want to make that very, very clear. Like that's the number one goal here. But when MJ Rice, the human, is right, that leads to MJ Rice, the basketball player, being right. And it leads to him doing some downright nasty things on that court. So I liked the pace to his game. I like the shot making ability. If he buys into the system fully, I think he can be special for the Pack.
Next one here from Leaf Outlaw. They say, will there be a glitch in the Matrix where the Pack will win a football championship this year? Kenton would know. I swear my guy looks like Morpheus. Tell us, Morpheus, what do you foresee for NC State football?
See, now, if I take my glasses off, you're going to say I look like one of the characters from Naruto with the red eyes. So that's why I have the glasses on. But in all seriousness, I could absolutely see NC State winning a championship in football this year. That is something that we need to set an expectation of, because I'm sorry, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, avoid expectations. Oh, the law of the wolf and da-da-da. I don't care about any of it. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm the type of guy, from Little League up, I didn't play for teams that were historically champions, but I won a lot of them because it was never that running from, let's tiptoe around it. Let's be quiet. Let's be gentle. No, you've got to believe. But like we talk about, or like we've heard from Jim Valvano plenty of times, before anything can happen, it must first be a dream. That dream has to turn to belief. That belief is then carried out. You have to believe. I believe with the ACC, how it looks this year, with NC State's schedule this year, there is absolutely a plenty of worlds where NC State wins a ACC championship in football this year. I believe that this team can do it. I believe that it'll happen. Despite my Morpheus look, I am believing that there will be no glitch in the matrix. Things will just be what they are, because this is where NC State can be long term.
It truly does feel like the stars are beginning to align for NC State football. And so it's time to take it and run with it. It's time to get to the place that has so frustratingly avoided you for so many years. It's time for Dave Doeren to break through and get to the big one and then win the big one. It's time. Yeah. And we're going to talk about this again 100 more times before they kick this off in August. But the excitement, you can already start to feel it now that basketball season and the transfer portal is dying down a little bit. What does that mean? It means you can smell football coming around the corner. And we have a lot to be excited about once late August rolls around. Last one here comes from Johnny98-335. They say, how are things going with Sean Stewart? Funny you should ask, Mr. Johnny. Okay, Sean Stewart was a power forward at Duke this past year. He was a freshman. Athleticism like you could only dream of. The kid can jump through the roof. Didn't get a whole lot of playing time at Duke. We saw a good amount of him when we played him our 3 times this season. I can't remember whose shot he blocked, but he punched it through Middle Earth, and that still is stuck in my brain. Sean Stewart is in the transfer portal. He announced it, I believe, a week or so ago. The initial reports of teams that have reached out to him did not include NC State. I don't want to stir the pot, but I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. I'm going to stir it a little bit. Sean Stewart, his father, followed Locked On Wolfpack on Twitter on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he do that?
Why?
The family is not from North Carolina. They're from Florida. We have an opening. Duke and Sean Stewart specifically know very well how NC State's season went. Why would he follow us? He'll probably unfollow us if he sees me talking about it. Sean Stewart's dad followed an NC State podcast at a very interesting part of this transfer portal. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. Kevin, pick up the phone.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say this. Sean Stewart I think he's more than a phenomenal athlete. I think that he has the ability to be a staple in somebody's front court for the next couple years if given the opportunity. And I'd absolutely love to see him as a staple in NC State's front court. I mean, the reality is very simple, right? You don't get the accolades and all that he was highly touted out to be without having the skills to back it up. He may not have had the opportunity to display them at a high level at Duke last year, but I truly believe that he's somebody that, you can pick him up in the portal, especially with how things turned out in the Mo Diarra situation. I think that's a great get right there.
And if you're looking for size, he stands at 6'9", 227 pounds, just a freshman. So potentially 3 years of eligibility. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Something to keep an eye out for. That'll do it for us here on Friday. As always, thank y'all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments down in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the acquisition of Marcus Hill to NC State basketball. Tell us what you think about Auburn transfer linebacker Cam Riley decommitting from NC State before we even got to have a cup of coffee with the guy. And tell us what you think about potentially Sean Stewart gaining some interest from NC State. Any other thoughts you have from this week on your mind, put them down in the comment box. I'll be sure to get to them. We will see you all on Monday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.